Hello and welcome. My name is Martin Close, and this is the Classical Art Academy online art school. Evening, everybody. I think we're okay. He says, welcome to tonight's stream. Just putting my gloves on. Rachel should be with us shortly, about 15 minutes or so, hopefully. And yeah, I think everything's working. Maybe. So we'll continue. Okay, so firstly, welcome. Second week of the year. I've progressed this painting on a little bit for a couple of hours earlier today, just to show you, well, to give us a head start really. What do we want to do today is to develop this up more. Can you see from last week's, we've just put some more shadow of trees in the background. And you can see particularly around this area, we've got a bit more complicated. So a quick slurp of tea. So from going fairly simple, which you can see over this end, slightly more complex over here now. And then this, quite complicated. Now, how far we progress with this, how detailed we go with this painting, it depends obviously on us. We could leave it as a impressionistic piece of work, or we could just carry on and carry on and carry on until it's almost like a photograph. But we've stylized this somewhat, so the photograph wouldn't really be appropriate, I don't think, anyway. I think what we want to do here is to go a little bit impressionistic. It's quite moody, so I'm going to be bringing this pattern across now, not as a complete blanket, but we're going to go down a bit and up, and some darks appearing in. And I've got the Imprimatura. If I show you that, that's a photograph of the Imprimatura. And I'm going to be bringing that back into the foreground as well. So it's kind of developed a bit since last week. Let's have a slurp of tea. I hope you can hear everything all good. Like I said, Rachel should be here in about 15-20 minutes, but you've got me till then, so good luck. Okay, let's get cracking. So, selection of brushes, slightly smaller than normal. I've got 4, as you can see, from really dark to dark, bit of medium and a bit of light. Now, the nearer we get, we're going to go slightly more authentic in colour. But the further back, it's very misty, very foggy, it's going to go quite moody. I think in actual fact what I'm going to do first off is just continue with this little bit of colour. Put some of these, or a couple of those down. So let's just progress. Again, I'm using a Venetian Terps mix for a medium. And this I feel is going to be a little bit dark in here, but there's going to be some light stuff. Now look at the way I'm putting the paint on, not all in one direction. Because this down here is a little bit wet and sticky, it creates it's an easier way to soften in some of these edges. It's not dry. I hope you've all had a good week. Let's just pop that in. Okay, so I think what I'll do is I'll continue that with a bit more, actually a bit more light. You can see it's quite a live thing, this, in the sense that you would normally obviously, if I wasn't talking, I'd be thinking about the painting and what I wanted to achieve from it. So it's all a bit live, for want of a better word. Now I'm going to put some dark in here. So let's just pop that in as a dark shape. So let's just pop this in. I want to create, I'm looking at the imprimatura here. And I kind of feel the dark needs to come up to about this level. So not to be shy. Sorry. Throat tends to give up at this time of the evening, afternoon. Let's have a quick look at that. Yeah, I think that's okay. We'll let's just now put this lighter shape in. I don't want to go too light with it initially, so we'll go with the slightly lighter shape. Let's put that in. Now, I think this is kind of, let's go a bit lower down. Notice I'm not going to detail, I just want to get this in as a rough. Again, looking at the image on the screen because it gives me the whole picture. Let's go in and do a bit of dark work again. Got something nice booked up for next week for us. We're gonna, I think, was it? I think it was Tony. Tony, I don't know if you're here watching yet, but I think in my head it was you who suggested some buildings. So I've got a few ideas which I want to pursue on that. Particularly, I quite like the idea of wet, rain and reflections and things like this. There's a couple of thoughts on that. So I'm quite looking forward to doing that next week. Bit of catch you all up with a bit of bits and pieces. These stream studies we are now making into full tutorial videos with voiceovers and stuff. So I'm quite looking forward to those coming up too. The online school is progressing in these dark times. I want to make sure I don't go too dark, too high with this. I don't think I am. We're going to see if we can launch probably with about 8 or so tutorial videos, and we're getting on well with those. So I'm hopeful we won't be too long. I'd love to give you a we're going to launch on this date, but every time I do that, something happens. Okay, so this, I'm just looking at I've got a photographic reference here of which I'm not adhering to too accurately, but I don't want to drift too far away from it if I can. Nature is a beautiful reference. It makes things a lot easier if you listen to. Amazing what nature knows. So I'm just kind of getting the big bold shapes in of these light and dark areas, which is why I started with this over here, and then we'll move across with this detail, for want of a better word. Let's have a quick peep. It's going to turn the volume down on my phone. All right. Well, it's looking tree-esque. Right, let's just put some of these lighter areas in. I don't want to lose track of where I am. It's a balance between not going too exact, but you don't want to stray too far from the field. Oh, here looks like Rachel's coming. Hello. So that's a little light area which we'll progress with. And what I do to the right, I'm going to do to the left. Let's just look and observe for a second, see where we are with that. So let's get this lighter area. Still using quite a large brush to put some of these areas in. It's quicker, easier to paint at this stage. I can complicate that shape up, so I'm not too worried about it. And I would like to just see the truth on this, so let's just pop that in. Sometimes, if I feel it needs it, I will bend the truth of what I see to what I want. But I'll still keep in mind what nature has given me, what I'm looking at. Pointless making it up when you've got such a lot of natural beauty around you. I want to keep this fairly dark, but I don't want to keep it too simple. I want to complicate that up a little bit. It could be enough. Now there's a dark area which runs across the top of that light area, so let's nail that in. Digs in there. Again, the medium I'm using is Venetian terps with a little bit of solvent in it, just to help the flow a little bit. Venetian terps, some of you guys have used it, I know. It's fairly thick, gloopy. Just knock that off a little. Yeah, that's better. do a quick sound check in a sec with Rach. Just confirm that all is good. Okay, so we're building this now. There's a light area which comes across. Let's just pop that in. So where are we? We are around about here. That's above. So it's around about that area. This is quite near, so it'll be higher contrast. Lighter and dark areas. Good, that's progressing. But I'm using Naples yellow into this mix. And this mix has got some green in it. It's a bit of a complex colour. So we've got a bit of black, a bit of the cabin yellow deep, and also some burnt sienna probably in there, as well as some green. So it gets a bit complicated as it works down. Obviously there's more black in the darker values and more Naples yellow in the lighter ones. Try not to use white for these lighter areas, because it just takes away drains the colour out of everything. Right, it's coming along. This area here is a kind of near foliage, so it's stuff which isn't too far away. It does come across. Now also something which is quite bright along here, so it's about that area. Again, all I'm doing is simplifying big shapes first. So I'm just developing it. When you do something like this, you've got to do it in stages, so the background stuff gets done first and put to bed, and then you develop each layer. At least that's one way of doing it. I find it, obviously, try to do the easy methods because we're learning. Keeping in mind tree-esque shapes. Okay. Now I'm going to pop something in, just going to help define that area. It's one of those moments which you kind of hold your breath on. So a little bit of, not too dark, not too light, kind of medium-ish. Might be slightly dark. Beautiful thing about this, having a string of colours like this, is you think it's going to go light, you just move across. If you think it's going to go darker, then you move the other way. As long as you don't mix everything up in one big heap. Kind of works. Now, there's something coming up here. It's kind of in this area. So I'm just going to put the rough of where this is. It's kind of coming, it's almost coming straight up, so bring it down. Now, okay, so here I'm holding my breath now. Let's stick it in. We'll put a skeleton of a branch in. There's a bit of water. That down. Don't get too thick. That's, I think, is about right. You see, that just kind of, it's not in the near ground, it's not in the background, it's kind of in that middle ground. It's exactly where we want it to be. If it was darker, like this sort of colour, it would bring it forward. And if it was lighter, it would push it further back amongst the trees. So we don't want that. I kind of like that in that position. Now we can get a bit more complicated on other areas. So with that in mind, we can put some light shapes in around it. Now, is that light enough? No. So we'll make it lighter. Naples yellow. Bit of the medium. So I'll put this in the right place. It's quite light and it's quite wet actually, this brush, so going straight in with the yellow, as you can see. Yeah, that's the kind of value I want to have in that area. I just wanted to stand out. Now I'm continuing down with the same colour, but some of these I might touch back because I don't want everything to come forward. I think when students start to paint, they're always in fear of getting the right colour, and to a certain degree you can say things like right colour, right place, right shape, etc., gives the right painting. So, but really, if it's in the wrong place, well, you know, you can easily move it. It's not a big deal. More important is you enjoy the process. So these are light shapes which I'm going to make smaller, break it up a bit. I don't want to take them completely away. Now as I move up, some of this colour naturally gets mixed in with the other colours which are already wet on the canvas, and so it tones down a little bit anyway. Bring this over. Again, what you do to one side, do make sure you have a bit of continuity. Good. I think this might be one of my favourite little paintings. I like the way it's beginning to come together. slightly slow journey, but then it's a little bit more complicated than some of the other paintings we've done. You'll see how this looks quite light down here, but it doesn't look as light up there. Almost looks dark in actual fact. So we'll start breaking some of this area up. Now what's underneath is actually dry. And I don't want to lose everything which has already been painted on here. So I'm kind of dancing around this skeleton of a tree, for want of a better word. We've got some dark shapes we want to put in, but I want to establish where some of these lighter values are first. Again, these are just shapes. Try not to paint a leaf at a time. Take you forever. It's the same as portraiture. You don't paint the strand of hair, you paint the light and dark shapes which the hair make. And then you can pick out one or two if you wish. All of a sudden you've got hair. It's beginning to look quite effective on the screen. Trick is, don't go too much. Less is frequently more. Almost ready for some of the dark areas, I think. So look at this. This is some foliage which is wrapping its way around that trunk of tree. Try to make different strokes with the brush as you do this. Don't make the same brush mark. And whatever you do, don't go dob, 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 dob. It just looks hideous. You might think it's going to get you what you want, but actually no, it doesn't. Okay, I'm going to continue with this. Let's just bring that up slightly. And again, with the light, I'm kind of chasing the light now. What I mean by that is where there's light, I'm chasing it. That's where I'm going. Again, don't paint the leaf, paint the shape. If you have any queries or questions, please do type them in. Rachel's here, so oops, there you go. That was a deliberate mistake. Don't get worried. It's going to be okay. nothing ever goes smooth, so if that's it, then brilliant. Some of the lighter areas on this as well. If something like that does happen to you whilst you're playing, just honestly don't worry about it at all. It's fine. What's the worst can happen? You might have to wipe it off. Good. Okay, so I'm kind of slowly making my way around this. And the reason for that is I want to kind of keep it relatively true to the nature, the photographs I've got here of this section. This part is actually very near Hardy's cottage. There's a small, I don't know if any of you have been to Hardy's cottage in Dorset, but just past the cafe as you walk up towards the cottage through the trees, you come to something which looks very similar to this. Well, this fallen tree. This bit is in Yorkshire. That's Dorset. That's why I say you don't have to keep totally true. You can bend it a little bit. In this case, quite a lot. I think I'm getting there. Right, I'm going to put the light brush down, pick up the dark. One of the dark. Where are we? That one. So let's look at just correcting this little bit, which show you how easy it is to do that. I don't think nature does straight lines, so make sure you don't paint them in. So you see now, this light area, I can complicate. Big shape, making it smaller shapes. Smaller shapes again. And if I need to put some light back in, well, I can do. It is very much, it's like driving a car, I suppose. You don't just turn the wheel, do you? You turn it and you think, oh, that's a bit too much, so you might turn it back a bit. Exactly the same with painting. You're in control. Maybe. At least that's the idea. Yeah, that's beginning to look a bit like Christmas, so let's just push this across. Now we've got a light area there, which we put in. That's good. We need it, so I'm not going to take it out. I'm just going to add some dark underneath it if I can. And again, complicate that area. Try to imagine everything you're seeing here is a complete illusion. It shouldn't be too hard. And so ask yourself, what's real? And the answer is, well, of course, nothing. It's not a forest, it's shapes of light and dark colour. Primarily, though, value. And if you get those light and dark shapes in the right place, it'll look a right painting. So don't worry too much about, I always say this, don't worry what it is. Just focus on what you see. You get it right, it'll be right. Mm.
for you to maybe move the painting to another camera so people can see the full colours, because at the moment it looks quite monotonal compared to your palette on screen.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's very...
It is quite subdued, I suppose.
Yeah, it's much more green on screen, like slightly more Implementura like.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, of course. Again, coming in with a bit of dark, but not to dominate. The light shape above needs to remain. I mean, we've kind of transformed this area in a very short space of time. Okay, continuing with a little bit of dark, but not too much as we come up. We have another tree emerging, so let's put that in. Kind of feel it needs to be, where does it need to be? Around here. I think anybody can see that, including me. Let's put it in a bit more. This might be a bit light. Okay, just shove it across. I'm going to pop this in at a slight angle, I think. Trim it. And let that come up in places. And go through. Good. Now, let's see again. We're going to pop in some of the highlights around this area. Don't obliterate everything that's there. It goes slightly darker. Now the dark is going to be, that's quite a bit dark. Okay, so the dark is going to be underneath. Let's just mix that a little bit in. Yep. It was a little bit darker than I anticipated. Never mind. generally speaking, if light is coming from above, the shadows are underneath. So light and dark underneath the shadows. Underneath the shadows? Underneath the trees or the canopy of foliage. It's quite funny, whenever you start a new area, it's always kind of, you end up with a, is it right, is it? But I think it's going to be okay. Popping in the light again into that area. And we'll complicate this again in a sec. Get that in. Okay. Again, moving to the somewhat darker but a thinner brush. Just want to dance in somewhere around here. Again, random strokes. Dance around a place. So tempting to go too detailed sometimes. You're trying to keep your mind on your objectives. Because you do wander a bit sometimes. So. One wonders if Da Vinci did this, sort of to keep his focus on not going too detailed in the wrong places. Or was he just so brilliant he didn't have to think about it? I think he was pretty good. Coming into some of the light again, just want to mix in some light into this. It's a kind of, I wouldn't say it's foreground tree, but it's not a background tree, it's in this neat area. Again, going darker as we go. Quite amazing how actually, once you've You don't paint the shape of a double-decker bus in there, it'll look like a tree. Think of tree-esque shapes. I do seem to have a cross here, which I'm not very pleased about. Let's have a quick look at what we've got. Break that up. Yep, got rid of that. Like I said, straight lines, patterns, don't do it. Now going darker still, let's just look at this. So I don't go too dark, I want to kind of keep some of these gaps. But I do want to bring a feature or two out, especially on the shadow side. Bit more medium. It's quite nice and sticky, this now, so it means that we can build quite readily. Means I can put fresh paint on top of paint which I only just put on, basically, so you can layer when it's wet. Just makes it slightly easier to do. Little by little. Light on the top. Shadows underneath the light. Don't do stripes, do shapes. If you feel yourself doing a stripe, then just change it. It's beginning to take form. Good. See, you really have no idea what that is. Neither do I. But we don't need to. When it's in the bigger picture, it kind of makes sense. This shape here doesn't mean anything. But in the bigger picture, it makes sense. So do keep that in mind. I think if we were to look at just this end now, this side of the painting, kind of works. Now let's get a bit more shadow detail and form in some of these light areas over here. So again, we've got light. Let's just dance around that light. A bit of dark. You're too detailed in this area. Almost just wanted to put a bit of shape in there. Just let the brush dance around. Now, of course, we're doing a slightly surreal colours. We've got a orangey glow coming through. The nearer we get, the trees are getting slightly greener. But you can make these any colours you wish. I've seen red trees. As long as you follow what is the shape is true, you don't have to paint the tree greens and browns and many different shapes, many different colours. Right, so we're coming in now, working our way down this tree. As we work down, we get darker because the shadows will be more dominant than the highlights. How's that looking, guys? Everything cool? Let's have a glass of water. So what I'll do is we'll sorry, I will work on great. Yep. Let's just complicate this underneath a little bit more. Into a few other bits and pieces coming in. There you go. A bit of light under there, just threw a bit of sparkle in the shadow. We could do the same to around here. tiny bit more. Yeah, don't need no more of that. Okay, so let's move across. Let's have a quick look at the time. What is the time? 6 o'clock. Excellent news. Right, let's move into the Yorkshire part of this forest. Now, firstly, we need to have a bit of continuity in there. So a quick, some light. Now I'm just thinking, where are we? Okay, so let's pop that light brush down. Now this is the emergence of two totally different areas, so treading a little carefully, because I'm going to be making this up largely. The interaction anyway between the two needs to go from one to the other, which we should be able to do no problems. Let's get a bit of dark in there. Again, dark shapes. Hope you're all enjoying this. That's very dark. Might regret that. Let's disguise it a little bit. Done. Now let's be a bit mindful of that dark zone. Right. So I've got a photograph down here which is reasonable. Let's put some of the lighter main shapes in. That let's get a lighter on that. Yeah. some of this area I want to bring a little bit forward, so I'm popping some of these areas in a bit lighter than I'd normally do, I think. But here we go. Let's now go with. I'm going to go for a slightly bigger brush, I think. Actually, no. And go slightly darker. Rolling the brush to put the paint on. I want to move that tree. So, tree moved. Now, varying that up a bit. So I'm going to go light into the dark. Yeah, that's nice. You can see now it's just beginning to shove across. So, oops, wrong colour. Never mind. Put that in anyway. So that goes across there. Yeah, so we don't need to know what's going on in here. It just needs to be, it needs to just look a little bit realistic. So I think like it makes sense. Light and dark areas. Just want to pull that back in. Good. Now let's define this tree. Easiest way to do that is to put some dark behind it. Kaboom. There you go. Yep. Almost makes it look too light. So maybe we just turn that down a bit. Good. Another shape. Let's just see where that is. So I'm using a dark brush, but it's an edge I want, so that's it. Another one. I don't want any more than that yet. So let's pop this in. Go and switching over to a slightly darker. I want this to bend round, so oh hello. That's a bit of a dark dot. What we got here is a bank coming up. I don't want it to go up too steeply. I think that's makes it look kind of nice and interesting. those straight edges, shapes. Yeah. So that's, if anything, has increased the depth of the painting. Now, taking that brush, adding a slightly lighter colour. Forming that bank. But if I go too light, this tree is going to be in this area, so we won't exclude it. I'm borderline using a dark brush for a light area, which obviously is not good practice. Getting that. I think this tree is in that cluster as well. So looking at the reference, yes it is. Some of those trees aren't and some of them are. So we can put those in, which, well, we'll paint the background I think first, because that's the most sensible part to do. Bit of dried paint. Now, that area, I think this needs to go light, but that could go slightly darker, but do we need it to? We've got a nice dark area here. I don't want to go too twee and go dark over there as well. So maybe we don't go so dark over there. We just go a little bit, put a little bit of value in. I kind of feel it's nice to have this. We can complicate that out a little bit, but let's just have a look at this. Okay, a bit darker than that. Yeah. This is probably ish. Don't want to go too much darker than that. Oops. I think I'm going to go and bring that down a little bit. A sec, I'm going to fill up just a little bit too high on that area. Just make that wet. Good. And this area the same. I kind of like the value of it, so that's going to make those trees stand out. Yeah. So a little bit in there. So pretty much this is exactly the same as this middle section was. We just want to put a bit more life into it. I'm going to go slightly lighter, I think, on that zone. Let's just do that now. now we can, I think, play with that area. Slurp of tea, albeit cold. Right, so let's put some tree-esque shapes in here now. A quick look and see what we're doing on that. We'll start with the main trunk areas, I think, so let's just bring those into place. We don't want to go too dark with the distant ones, so I'm going to use this little chisel brush. And we're going to put some of these main areas in. So we've got one coming up about here, going across. Now that is actually on this near mound, so a bit more juice on that, make it slightly darker to one side. Have it coming down about there. That's that. And as that goes up, let's have a quick look where it goes. Crosses over the path. And then we've got some others in the background, so we go lighter for that. Gain a bit more juice, medium. Put some of these skeleton shapes in. That's all I want to do with that. This goes into here, I think. Or should it? There's a question mark over that one. Yeah, it could do. Yep, I think it will do. This one doesn't though. Kind of feel these a little bit dark. Make it lighter still. Okay. So the secret there is if you want something to recess, really regress, go back into the woods, just make it slightly lighter. And I'm putting some light on the left side of these as well, even though some of them are going to be near. So then we can darken them down. On the left side. Okay, so that's kind of a big tree. But I think I'm going to make that on the other side. So it's a big tree, but it's on the other side. This tree will make down, so let's go darker now. Please do feel free to ask any queries and questions you want. And we can discuss those whilst I'm doing this. Okay, so that needs to go darker still. So I'm going to wipe that brush off because it's got a bit of light onto it. And coming again on the left-hand side. So what I'll do with this over the next day or two is I'll work on it, record it, and it will be part of a tutorial which will have launched on the site, broken up into its various stages. In more detail. Now let's have a quick look at the others. I'm gonna bring another one down and pop it here, I think. So don't want to do that one. Let's bring this one down. Yeah, I think that works. Do remember to breathe when you do things like that. Now, I'm going to lighten the brush up a little bit. Again, I'm breaking rules here, but should have one brush per colour. Okay. Coming again into this zone. Now, a couple of shapes in the background. Not all of them are going to be visible trees. And I don't want I think that's probably enough. I just want to make it look like there's a lot going on behind which we can't necessarily see. Stuff going on. Now we had a nice tree here. Yep. So again, stronger colours brings you into the near ground. Lower contrast colours will push you back. This is a light trunk. It's just a little bit too light for me, but it could just hit the light. So who are we to say anything? But I'm going to just put a dark edge on the left-hand side. Again here, dark edge on the left. Going a little bit dark. Okay, so that looks like there's enough going on. Put that down, and I just want to tickle a bit of light into that one. But not terribly much. And only on the right hand side, oh, that's a bit of a bright beacon of joy. Let's just put that down. Yeah, okay. Same with some of these others. This, for example. Yeah, we'll work that in a sec now. This is going to be quite near. Let's just work on the background stuff just for a little bit. And then we'll work into this area. I want to go fairly swiftly into that if I can. So I don't want to go too dark in some of this, but I do need a bit of dark shape coming up here and there to make it look a bit like there's something going on. Good. And as just mindful of it, seems to sort of come down here. I just need to have it leveled off a little bit. So I'm going to go slightly darker on a kind of make-believe horizon area there. You can see that's just made almost like there's a hill. That's where the ground is coming across. So that's going to marry up with this guy nicely. Yeah, we stopped it from, it disappears into the distance, which I think is quite nice. Right. Let's look at this. Do we need to do anything else with that zone? Maybe we do just a little bit here and there. So I'm going to use smaller brushes for that though. Let's have a quick peep. Light. Touch of green now, just a little bit, but not too much. That's way too much. Tone that down a bit. Joys of using good quality pigment. Now, this might appear to be a little light. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, that's works. So I think let's have a quick look at this zone. So fairly swiftly, I just want to complicate this area up a little bit. I don't want to go too detailed. Soften that in a bit. This needs to grow a little bit. Yeah. Feels like it just needs to go slightly higher, but not too much. This tree's wet. I use that. Highlights will be on the right side of whatever's going in, so do remember that. We'll also use the light to soften the edges. Now, let's just take that down a step. There we go. So a lot of this is putting a colour in and just wheeling it around the place, and they soften into each other, forming a shape which you can then work with. Don't start popping in robins and other such birds at this point. In other words, don't over-egg the pudding. Good. So for want of a better word, all I'm doing is complicating this now. Again, exactly the same as I've complicated all the way around here. For those of you working these exercises live onto a canvas, brilliant, by the way, well done. Don't worry about, just take it as a stage at a time. Don't go too wild into the detail of a bush. You don't need to. Little stages. It's already looking a bit tree-esque. If you try to paint the branches and the leaves and the stuff, I think you'll end up with a big headache. Notice I'm just letting the brush dance around the place, keeping my eye on the shapes it's making. I really just wanted to dance around. And I've said this before, it's a bit like you're watching a movie and the doorman of this movie, you don't want him becoming the leading actor, is the doorman. So just gently does it. Don't develop an area too much, in other words. I don't want to obliterate all of the colour that's underneath. I do want to just use it to create the depth. Right, popping those in. Now, again, the light on the right, dark on the left. And put a little bit of medium onto the brush, it's a little bit dry. That's it. I'm bringing that down again now. So again, we're bringing these trees forward, but not all of them, and not all at once. The light is mixing in with the dark. We put the light on first, remember? And that creates a softened edge. We want it sharp, we can make it sharp. Yep. Okay, so let's have a quick peep. So these trees which are in the background will have let's see, their canopies will be starting different levels. Stands to reason, don't have them all coming into leaf at the same height. And again, shape, not leaf. Right, I'm going to leave that there because I want to work in this zone. What sort of time are we looking at? Good, we've got about half an hour. Excellent. So, big brush. Put some of these smaller brushes down there because I'm going to work in some big areas, so maybe these two will be finer. I need to know first, let's just stick in some of these highlights. Now, I'm going to be using more greens for this area, so I'm going to be starting to put in a bit of green down here. Now this is sap green, but I don't want it to be too green. So a quick look at that. Yeah, I think that works. And the other one, this is a dark brush which has got every colour on it, I think. Let's get a bit of tissue and just clean that brush off. So, how do we make this look a bit, ooh, hello, a bit nice? Start with the light. So we've got yellow and we've got green, making a yellowy green. Let's pop a bit more chroma into that. So a bit of green and also just a bit of that burnt, I think it's raw, burnt sienna. Burnt sienna will just take the edge of that green off. And keeping it light as well, mixing it in with the, so it looks like the Naples yellow. I'm just still getting the colour that I want on this. Yeah, I think about there. I don't want to go bright riotous green because that would be a bit silly, wouldn't it? Now this, we've got, let's pop a bit of that in. There's a light area. Good, so oopsie. So now, any area I put in, it doesn't work, well, no big deal, I can take it out. Yes, so you can see that's just not green, but it's green-esque. I'm going to go lighter with the Naples yellow into some of these. And as I do that, it brings it further nearer to us. This, I want to keep that as a bush area. So real shapes more than anything at this stage. Now that's very near, so I don't want to go yet into that because I'll have even more colour in it. Get a bit more sap and a little bit more burnt sienna. That's a lot of sienna, so let's just put a bit more sap in it. So this is a dark-esque green, mixing in now with some of the lighter shapes. It's just a bit higher chroma, not a huge lot, not a huge amount. Put a bit of shadow into that. Right, now very grating that colour in. This is going to be a light area, so we'll make it, put a bit of light, just wipe the brush on it more than anything. I want to clear the paint from the brush, so I'll do that on that side. Good. Now let's just wipe the excess off. And we'll work into some of these darks. So this is a fairly, let's just pop that in. It's a shadow. This is on here, so that's a shadow. Going more green and dark. Kind of experimental, just pushing that in. You see it's brought it forward, but we're not done with it yet. Softening, just complicating these areas out, I guess, for want of a better word, we'll use that one. Okay. I think we've got the big patches on this, so let's just see what happens now when we merge that in. So initially I'm just going to break these big shapes into slightly smaller zones, smaller shapes, using just a brush to do that. As in like a dry brush, one of white. All I'm doing here is just feeling my way around these shapes. See if I agree with everything. If I don't agree with something, then now's the time to take it out. And as this really doesn't exist in its true trueness, then it can be changed around the place. I think actually what I'm going to do here is use the burnt sienna and add a bit of Naples yellow to it. Burnt sienna is a kind of a red, so you can see it's a reddy brown. I'm going to see what this looks like. I'm going to pop that take the chroma away a little more. That's a lot of... Okay, that's high collateral damage on that colour, so we'll start that off again. I wanted to take some of the chroma away, so I used black to do that, to darken it down, but it just stole it, took everything. Now let's just see what this looks like. Yep. I think a lighter version of that is what we're after. So sometimes when you're walking through, a little bit warmer, when you're walking through the forest, you'll see a kind of a warm base. It's not earth, it could be leaves, it could be something on the ground. Dried up debris. I want to put it all in, but I think here and there would work. Lightening it with the Naples yellow. That's it. So the path has actually gone into that and up, which is, I think, works quite well. Good. So you can see this has got higher chroma on it, there's a bit more colour, it's bringing it forward, and that's really kind of nice. So let's look. Again, popping that in. Interesting, that last brush mark just made this look a little bit easier to believe, in a sense that created a narrowing of the path, so I think that was quite nice. Let's just put the same over here. Let's get a bit of that colour, that warmth. Complicating that round. I'm going to come back to this in a minute because I want to make that a lot more bush-esque, bushy. Just whack that in there for the time being. Check the time. 15 minutes to go. So I hope you've enjoyed this today. We've taken these basic shapes and really developed it up into a much more complex painting, but still having this warmth in the background, in the glow, bringing it forward. We've changed the painting quite a bit. This tree still needs to be changed, and we're going to develop all of this foreground area. But like I said, I'll do that in, rather than on a stream, I'll do that in a tutorial video format. Because I think this painting's nice. I think it's something about it's working, so it'll be nice to see that as a slightly higher stream, higher finish. Now I'm going to put some shadows in here, so let's get the rest of this off. And again, so burnt sienna, their tree trunks, bless them, aren't always brown. We know this, but it's so easy to think, oh, it must be brown. They could be green, they can almost be cream. But I really want to put in some darkened shadow into this area, see? That's it. Light coming across here. Now, when you're on a flat surface, it's easy to put the shadows in, but when you're on a undulating surface, the shadows can go in many different directions. For example, this shadow could actually go down first before it goes across. And in so doing, it creates, can you see what it's done? It's created a little bank, like it's gone up. So don't feel that you just got to go all one area. You can change the shadows. Again, through observation, look at Mother Nature. She is just brilliant, and she'll tell you exactly what needs to be done. And question what it is that you see. Just focus on what you truly see. We can paint through imagination, that's great, but sometimes if you are painting life from life, just look. No need to think what a carrot is if you're looking at a carrot. Just look at the carrot and just copy what you see. It'll be the carrot if you get it right. It's an oversimplification, but sometimes it's nice to be that way. So I'm popping some shadows in here. And again, complicating out this fairly simplistic blocked in area. I think that's bringing this, can you see us grounding those trees and bringing it further forward? Now, again, this is a dark green, so I'm going to push the chroma higher because I want to get into some dark area here. Yeah, that's nice. That's made it a bit more, again, complicated. So when we started this, it was a fairly simplistic shape, light and a few dark areas. Now we're really sort of focusing on making this come alive. And look at it now, it's more complicated already. We are beginning to get more definition in there. That's a word, isn't it? Definition. All the D's. Definition, detail. Gosh. There's a dollop of dried paint there. We don't necessarily need that in our painting. Now, this bit. Remember last week we put a rock in, a couple of brush marks. I think we want to do that to this. I want to keep it grass area. So it's probably not quite ready for the finishing touches of putting a few strands of grass in, although that's dead easy to do. You just literally, I mean, don't go green because very seldom, and ideally speaking, we need a bit of highlight, but it's this just simple thing of putting a few marks up, which we don't do yet because if you did, that's what it looks like, so we don't do that. But in fact, that's exactly what we will be doing. Now I need to, let's have a quick look at this. I've used all the Naples yellow. Oh no, I haven't. It's some there. Excellent news. I don't want to go into too much at this point in this area because I'll come back to that. But for now, I just want to complicate it. I don't want it to be a dollop of anything. horizontal strokes because it's flat-ish. And the path is undefined. It's not got a pretty brick border around it, so it's going to be broken up. There's bits of highlight sticking up here and there. Well, that's a nice bit of natural something. There's another one there, kind of like that. This looks like a little clearing of area around that tree, so it's nice to make a little feature. Let's just pop. So I'm not quite sure how we're doing on time for this evening. It feels 5 minutes. Excellent. Thanks, Rich. Again, I really hope you've enjoyed this. Do send your comments on the... You can comment on all of the videos and stuff we do.
And do lift the picture up so people can see it in its full light.
Yes, I shall. Rachel's just said, do lift the picture up so I can show it off in all its glory. I'll definitely do that in a few minutes. There's a few things which we're working on. One of them is better quality main image and a better painting position for me. We're working it out. So I think I just want to pop this in kind of like this, so it's just forming the edge around that path. I'm not suggesting we'll keep it, but I kind of feel it's nice to explore. We're having a little explore. Why not? Now, if you were painting rocks underneath water, believe it or not, it's exactly the same principle as what I'm just doing here, just different colours. Breaking this edge up and pushing that back. I'm going to put a slight shadow underneath that bush, not tree. There'll be a bush one day, but not today. I've got the wrong colours on the brush, but they'll be looking at a bush. Good. Now this is just to collapse off on this area here needs to be a little dark spot. Shadow again, but unlike these, which some of them came down. Do you remember this came down? This is really flat, so it's not going to, I don't think it's going to go far. It's going to probably push into this area, and it won't have a sharpened edge, so I'm just going to put the dark area in on that in preparation for making it something special later. And again, breaking those up a bit. Right. Getting a light, which is this one here. Yeah. I just thought that looked a bit parkish. There's something like too convenient. Slightly unnatural. Yeah, I can work on that. Okay. So, I hope you've enjoyed this. Do let me lift this up. Do share your comments on the video and trying to spread the word. So you do spread the word as well. It'd be rather nice. Let's see if this helps the image. If I bring that forward off the canvas, I think it does. There's a few interesting shapes that I've just noticed around here. It looks like I've got a bit of work to do on that, which I've missed. But I kind of like this. I like the way it's beginning to form. I've got some tidying up to do around here. This is beginning to look quite nice. I haven't done anything on this or anywhere around here since last week. Those I'm leaving till last because it's going to push it all forward. I kind of like the painting effect which we got on this. I'm going to develop that up, I think, a bit more. And generally speaking, you can see the greens coming into play here. And they'll be very in the foreground around this area and along those trees, bringing everything nearer and nearer as we go. So I really hope you've enjoyed that. I've had a great deal of fun today. And next week, we're going to have something I think quite exciting to share with you. So please do tune in. That's 5 o'clock next Tuesday. Have a great week. Like I said, please do, if you haven't already subscribe, but do like the video if you can. Thumbs up, it's always good. And have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you next week. All the best.